Hey Kyle,
Good morning, everyone.
good morning. Just a heads up. So the new registration process, when you click on the link to join, if you have not yet registered, it makes you register. So it might take an extra I don't know, 30 seconds or something for people to join.
Okay, we'll give an extra few minutes. No
Cool.
worries.
Wednesday, the Bills owner is holding a press conference in a very
Morgan, just so you know too, I made you co-host as well, so you can help
Perfect.
facilitate.
Thank you.
You want to give it to about five after Morgan?
I think maybe like, I don't know, 2 more minutes should
Okay,
be good. Cool. Thank you.
sounds good.
let's see.
All right, everyone. Good morning. We're 4 minutes after the hour, so we're going to jump in and get started. So, welcome, everyone. My name is Kyle Westervelt, Senior Director of Operations Training and Support here at Union. Um, Been with Union for several years. Quick background on me. Been with Union for several years. One of the older kids on the block these days. Been with Union since 2020. Lots of different roles here, positions, pretty much everything post sales at some point has rolled up to me or my teams. Love Union, love the product. And I don't just say that because that's who signs my paychecks. I say that with my real background being the service industry for most of my, adult life. Was on the executive team for TGI Fridays for several years. Had several hundred restaurants that I was responsible for. Came all the way through as a busboy and all the way up to bartender and general managers. And so, I kind of come with a unique kind of observational view here, right? In terms of, what I think, how knowing how people use point of sale systems, knowing features that I really wanted, and all the systems that I ever used. Then as it relates to the union system itself. So we're going to cover a lot here today in these 2 hours. I hope everybody brought coffee and snacks. um, we are going to quick agenda of what we're going to cover here today. The intention of this training session is for all of our wonderful ISO partners, that so that you have really kind of a working foundational knowledge of how the system works and functions, so that you can speak to it, sell it, demo it on your own, and be self-sufficient in that regard, as well as supporting your customers, your existing customers with Union when they have those pop-up questions when you stop in to check on the business. So the quick agenda of what we're going to start with today is the front of house, as we refer to it. So this is the staff facing, you know, um, staff facing, I guess, really kind of the user interface that the staff would use, managers, right? As well as some other cool features and functions. Um, related to the mobile side of things, so the union mobile piece, which is just part of the union system and all the great benefits of that. Then some kind of functionality and cool workflows on the point of sale. Then we're going to switch over to the back end as well and give you a kind of a glimpse into the manager portal, the back end where all the reporting and settings live. As we're going through this, I'm going to have lots of points where we stop and ask if there are any questions. I want everybody to feel safe in this safe space to unmute and ask questions anytime. Because of the size of our group, we are going to mute everybody just kind of by default, but please feel free to unmute anytime if you have any questions. I'm also going to type a little welcome here in our chat. As we're going through this as well, please feel free to post questions in the chat. Morgan's going to help me moderate that as we're going through this and kind of pause me if I miss something. So we're going to jump in and get started, everyone. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay. We don't know yet, so let's dive in. All right, everyone. So everyone should be able to see my screen here. This is the front screen, the home screen of your Union POS. Everybody who accesses the system has a 4-digit PIN code they utilize. So I'll go ahead and put mine in now. When I'm clocking in to start my day, I'll see my name, date, and time. Now, within Union, it is possible for people to have multiple job codes, right? In industry, people do lots of different jobs in the same business sometimes. So if I had the different job codes, I might see like a busser or a server or a bartender or a shift manager, right? Or I could have multiple job codes. So I would select the appropriate one from start my shift, and I'm going to hit clock in. Now, from this point, I kind of really love the versatility here from Union side, in that it's kind of a choose your own adventure and how you want your interface to work, right? So if I'm a server, so what we're seeing here is an example of our table map or floor plans. When a venue goes through our onboarding process, when they sign on with Union, they go through our onboarding process, we're going to ask them to submit a bunch of information about the business so we can build this out custom for them. What you guys are seeing here today is just an example, kind of my sandbox environment. And so again, this is an example of a table map. On our table map, we have also options to have various different, sections of our business, right? So right now I'm in my lounge. I can filter to my bar section in this case as an example, right? And so like I was saying, maybe I'm a server and that's all I do is I have a section, I take care of tables. I might want to keep my view like this, right? I might want to see this where I can just come find the table that I need to start, tap on it and start my table that way. Now up at the top here where it says this little tab that says tables, if I tap that, that's also a drop down. We also have tab style checks, which would be like a standard walk-up bar tab, right? So if the venue doesn't really have tables and servers and they just want to base it off the individual, lots of folks operate that way. So we can do it that way. We also have our to-go check. So if it is a restaurant that serves food and they have to call in to-go orders, maybe you have somebody who just handles those orders and they just want to see the to-go checks. For me personally, back in my day, I was that guy who tried to get everybody cut early so that I could do everything and make as most money as possible. So I prefer the all checks view. From the all checks view, I can see I can start any one of those 3 different check types, and I would see every single one of my open checks in one place, regardless of the type of check it is. So that's the view I would prefer, right? So let's start here. We're going to start with what I consider the 5 basics, right? Being how do I, clock in, start a check, ring something up, take payment, get our tip, and then we'll talk about some more of the other cool stuff. So we're going to start here with our table style checks. When I tap on new table here, again, I would select the table I want to start, hit my blue done button down at the bottom of the screen. First question the system is going to ask me is enter number of seats. Now, this is not how many physical seats are at the table, right? This is how many guests, how many humans. So maybe, I've got a 6-person, 6-top table, but I've only got 3 people sitting there. I'm going to select the actual number of guests, hit the blue done button. Now we are in our check or our menu screens. So you'll notice here the check name auto-populated with my table number because I selected table 102. Sorry, everybody, give me 1 second. Morgan, would you mind messaging Jeff Sanders? He's
Yep.
messaging me about the meeting.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, everybody, sorry about that. So you see my check name here is auto-populated with the number 102. We've got 3 seats here now because I selected 3 when I began the checks. And now I can go by seat and add my items by seat. This is going to come in handy later on if we have a situation where we're going to split our checks, right? The other really nice part about the seat number thing is if it's a kind of a it's a runner situation where you have just, individualized drink and food runners. If you're utilizing the seat numbers, it will print on the production ticket, right? So on the kitchen ticket or on the service bar ticket, it will print the seat to the right of the item so that if you have a runner who's just running and not taking care of the table necessarily, they can easily identify where those things are going. Again, I can hit A to see all or everything on the check, and then to send this through, right? So to be actually make this, send the ticket and create a sale, I'm gonna hit the blue done button down at the bottom. This in a lot of other systems, this may be like a send or a fire button. Ours is just this blue done button. So you see when I tap that, now I'm back at my check screen. I began my table 102 and just sent those drinks to the bar. The next style check here is our to-go style check. And this again would be for like a call-in to-go order. So if I tap that, you'll notice it's going to start a little bit differently. It's going to end the same, but start differently. So here I have fields for phone number, name, address, right? If we are doing like a delivery situation. And so somebody calls up, we can, on the back end, we can make these fields required or not required. But the really cool part about this is, you call in, somebody calls in, they give you the phone number. Now they're in your database, right? So next time they call in, you just need a phone number and you can select their phone number. It'll populate all their information, their full name, their address. If you added notes like this person always asks for extra napkins and it's always 10 minutes late, right? You can put those notes here. Customer notes are only internally facing. They'll never show up on a actual printed receipt anywhere, so nothing to worry about there. Then other cool hospitality related stuff, right? Like favorite items that are ordered commonly, their average spend, how many times they've come and frequented the business, right? It's a really cool way to access this information, kind of create a more unique hospitality experience. So I'm going to hit the save button here. Now we're just back at our exact same screen we were at before, right? I can scroll down, find my items I need to ring up for Noel's check here, hit our blue done button, and now we've sent that ticket to the kitchen. Now, the other cool thing that happens with our to-go check style automatically is if I have a to-go check, when that ticket prints to a service bar or a kitchen printer, kitchen station printer, or a KDS, it's going to have to-go in big, bold red letters at the top and the bottom of the check. So everyone knows that it's, a to-go right off the bat. It'll also have all of Noel's information, his address, his phone number, right? So if it's, stapling tickets to a bag situation, it's really easy to access and see all that information in one place. That's going to take us to our third style check here, which is our tab style. When I select new tab, there are a couple different ways that I can start this one. I can hit new tab, and here where it says check name, I can simply tap there, and I can type in whatever I want. Maybe it's like guy in red hat. Now, fair warning I give to everybody, and I'll give you all the same. What you name a check does in fact print on a customer receipt. Repeat, does in fact print on a customer receipt. So we always want to be cautious what we're putting there, right? I'm going to hit save. I've named my check. And again, I can scroll through my menu screens, filter whatever I'm looking for, tap to add those items, hit our blue done button, and we've created that as our check. Now the fourth type here, especially with the, especially with the way I handle tabs, right? People are walking around, moving around the bar or the business. So people can wander away, right? So I always, if I was starting a tab for somebody and they weren't sitting at a table, would absolutely take a card to start that tab, right? So I can tap where it says new tab, and instead of tapping where it says check name this time, I'm instead going to tap this little blue icon that shows a card being inserted into the chip reader. So when I do that and I stick my card into my card reader, it's going to pull my name directly from my card. As you can see here, it's also saved the card on file, right? So you see the last four of my card down here. So now I have everything that I need to process this payment at any time. So I can go ahead and I can hand that card back to that customer. I don't have to be responsible for my staff being safe with the person's card behind the bar and not losing it and all the stuff that goes along with that. And it creates a better experience for the customer who's now not worried that their, private information, their card number is sitting behind a bar somewhere that they can't see what's happening to it. It also will tie in the same customer database that we saw when we started the to-go check. So here we see, again, average spend, last visit, again, customer notes that it will not show on a customer receipt. So this is, Don't give them Fireball, may or may not be accurate for me personally. I'll leave that up to you guys. But yeah, really cool access to information here. And then just like we saw before, we're going to come in here and we're going to add our items to our check, hit our blue done button, start our check that way. So those are all the different ways that we're going to start our different check styles on the point of sale. Moving back to our adding items, we're going to go back to our table 102 here for a second. So as we've started those checks, you all probably noticed that a venue's menu will live in this kind of center scroll bar. Again, this is something that during the onboarding process, they're going to give us all the information about their menu, their pricing, their modifiers, their items. And so a user can always go to the center scroll bar, navigate to an area that they're looking for. The reality is the way that I see most people use the system, just because of sheer nature of technology these days, is the little magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner. I can be any single menu screen that I want to be on, and I can go, oh no, I need a Tito's, right? Maybe I'm in my food section. And instead of going all the way back up to vodka, I can go to my little magnifying glass here. I can type in the item I'm looking for, filter right to it. Now, any item on the menu that you see the little double arrow on, that's going to be where you find your modifiers. So when I tap into the Tito's here, you'll see a couple examples, right? Maybe I've got different sizing and pricing options. I've got different drink styles, perhaps, or maybe mixers. And even those mixers can sometimes carry upcharges like Red Bulls. So what you'll see and what's pretty common industry-wide is that I'm going to have the same kind of set of modifiers behind all of my, vodkas in this example, right? Whiskeys might be a little bit different in terms of the cocktails, mixers, what so on and so forth. But usually, categorically speaking, your beverage is going to have the same modifiers. Now, food can get a little more complicated. And when I say complicated, just more specified, right? So here in our example, I'm going to go to my cheeseburger where I don't see a price. Now, I don't see a price here because that is a forced modifier. So when I tap on my cheeseburger, I have to select a side choice before I can add this to my check. So you'll notice here when I hit the blue done button, it's going to say, sorry, item requires you to pick a modifier. I'll hit OK. Once I've selected my forced modifier, I can absolutely then add this to the check. We also try to build out food items a little bit more specifically as it relates to things that can be removed or modified on those. So you see here our example of what I can remove from my burger. So maybe I want no onions. In addition to the modifiers that are built out for this specific item specifically, we also have up in the top left here your pencil option, which is your special instructions, right? And this is like a type in note. So maybe it's something like cut in half, something that doesn't come up often. Or becomes very, very common in the service industry that you have regulars who, know the menu inside and out, and they go, hey, I know you have this other ingredient that you have it on this other dish, but I want to put it on this one. Can I add that special modification? So one of the things that I love most in the modifier world for Union is the infinity symbol. So the infinity symbol will get you to be able to get to any modifier that exists in your entire menu, no matter what item this might be attached to. So again, if we go back to our scale here, specified for this particular item, but maybe they want to add avocado, I can easily go to that infinity symbol. Here's an add avocado I have attached to a salad. And now I can tap add it and charge the customer appropriately. Hit the blue done button now. It's going to add this to my check on the left, and then hitting the done button down at the bottom is going to send that ticket through.
Two questions.
Yes.
Okay. One, is there a way to text or send the live tab to the customer after you dipped the card from the tab?
Not necessarily. There are a couple workarounds whether it relates to QR codes and scan to pay. But really, in that scenario, what we're talking about is the utilization of Union Mobile, which we're going to talk about here in just a second.
Second question. When starting a tab, does the system perform an initial authorization and interim authorization as additional products are purchased prior to the final authorization?
Great question. So currently today, I believe, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've rolled it out that TSYS card present credentials on the point of sale will allow you to utilize our pre-authorization or incremental authorization options and settings. Today, universally for everyone, pre-authorization and incremental authorization is available with, again, Union Mobile tabs, which we'll see in a second.
Thank you.
Yes, it did roll out with TSYS.
Great. Thank you for confirming, Lynn. Yes. So TSYS card present transactions makes those functions available on the point of sale today. If you were using First Data card present gateways, then you can utilize that on the Union Mobile side.
Hey, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Can you reorder from a past order? So if you have a customer's profile or like order history, can you reorder from the order history from like last week or whatnot?
Um, Not quite. So you could see like commonly ordered items and then
Right.
essentially, re-ring it, but you can't just like duplicate an order from a previous
You
week.
can't duplicate it. Okay. And
Good question.
then is there a way to group products? So basically, let's say if I get Budweisers, instead of listing five Budweiser, can you group it together as five Budweisers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way you would do that is you'd come in here and Bud Light, instead of tapping it 5 times or three, whatever many quantity, you tap where that little quantity button where it says one right now. I can tap
Okay.
that and go, I want 4 of these
Perfect.
and have it and send it like that. And then you do have the option as well from a ticket perspective, if you want to have those items grouped as well, right? So you can group like items. So if I, instead of having a service bar ticket print with 5 Bud Lights on it, you can have it just print Bud Light with a quantity of 5 for a single line as well.
Okay. But let's say, for example, you get a Bud Light and they get another Bud Light, they get another Bud Light. You'll have three Bud Lights listed. So you could group those together, correct? On the POS?
So once you send it through, it will
Uh-huh.
break them out into separate items, right? So if I hit done on this now, it would have just sent that, right? And then depending on how I have my station settings for my tickets, would how that would just print on the ticket. When I
Okay.
go back into it, I will see them
Right.
individualized.
Yeah, yeah. That's I'm trying to see if we can consolidate that. So basically, it just says five Bud Lights, so they don't have to
Yeah,
scroll up and down the screen.
currently today that is not an option.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Good question.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Morgan, we good on chat questions for right now?
Yep.
Great. All right. All right, so let's keep moving, everyone. The next step here in our basics is just closing out a check, right? So taking payment and closing that check out. So one of the reasons that I like having the card on file is just how fast and easy this is. I can simply hit the fast card button down here, right? Charges the card on file, closes the check, and automatically prints out my slips for my customer to sign. Now, me personally, went to public school in New Jersey, so doing math in my head is one of my greatest fears in life. So I always point out that when you do not have a card on file, that fast card button will become a fast cash button. That when I tap that, it's just going to tell me, yep, whatever the total was, that's what you paid. Great, thanks so much, and close the check. Now, instead of hitting our fast pay button options, right, in the bottom left-hand corner, we have a large blue pay button. When I tap that large blue pay button, this is what I refer to as our traditional payment screen, right? So here you see all your different options of dipping or tapping. Of course, dip is inserting the chip, right? And all of our readers will get the ability to tap to pay as well. If they're one of the 2 people left on the planet without a chip on their card, we can swipe it. And just so you all are aware too, our system works very similarly to every other system as it relates to bad chips. So if our card readers in our system can detect and if a card has a chip, so it will require it. In the event that somebody's chip is broken, it doesn't work, right? So we've all seen that. It will allow for 3 failed dip attempts and then allow for the swipe, just so everyone is aware. Keyed entry obviously is a manual entry, taking a card number over the phone or that regular again whose card doesn't work any of it and they need to type the stuff in. Keyed entry on Union requires the full card number, the expiration date, the CVV, the full name on the card, and the zip code. So just to be aware, right, we make it try to make it as secure as possible for manual entry. Cash option here will allow me to enter a tendered amount and provide me change due in the upper right hand corner so people like me get a little help. And then we also have what's called house accounts. Now, house accounts are really kind of a queen on the chessboard of your tender types, so to speak, right? So there's the old-timey phrase that I use to describe what house accounts are is the norm at Cheers, put it on my tab, Sam, and I'll settle up with you on Friday when I get paid kind of a thing, where you can provide a line of credit essentially to a regular, right? I'd say today probably more common use for that scenario is like an owner or something that's just going to come in, they want to close out the check and is not going to pay for it and they just want to reconcile it that way. But there's lots of other uses for it today. So probably the largest one is deposits for private events. So if you guys have any prospective customers that do that often, right? The way that we do that with Union and house accounts is a really, really clean way for accounting. So I can create a party. We'll talk more about this later on, but I can create a house account for somebody's party. I can take a payment today on, January 22nd, whatever it is, for a party in in July. And then, so I've collected that payment today, but the upside here using the house accounts is it's not going into my sales for the day. So pretty much every system that I ever used in the past, you had to have like an open party deposit button for something so you could actually take somebody's money. But the downside was that it always went levied against my sales for that day. So I was paying taxes on that money before I actually used any product. And it wasn't a clean way of doing it from an accounting perspective. With doing it this way with Union, I collect the money day of. It doesn't go into my sales. It goes into my payments as a liability, right? Then day of the party rolls around 6 months from now. I ring up all my product that I'm using in real time. I use the house account to apply the deposit, and the customer pays the remaining balance day of. It's really, really a clean, nice way to do it. In addition to all your different payment methods you have here, in the bottom left-hand corner of this screen is also where you find your split functions. So we can do this two different ways. If they're going Dutch and they just want to split it evenly, however many ways, right? We can do it that way and just have, in this case, the 4 equal payment amounts. Or I can split by item. Again, another example of why having those seats when you're going to do that is really nice, because I've got this all set up to go already, right? I always can add a plus sign. So if I didn't want to use seats in the beginning, but now I have to split checks, I have my plus sign in the upper right where I can tap that and I can move an item over. And then the other thing that I really, really love about this is when I hit save from this screen, if they handed me all their cards and said, hey, just go ahead and close us all out, we're all separate, I can just stay right on this screen and close these all out. With every other system that I ever used, you once you split it, now you have all your separate checks, and now I have to go into every single check separately to take those payments. It wasn't really an efficient workflow. With this kind of workflow, this would save me what would have accumulated to be hours at the end of the year, right, from a speed perspective. If they want to pay 1 or 2 of them, I can also do that, or print 1 or 2 of them. Maybe I just need to print all of them first. I can do that with 1 button press, or just hit the blue done button, and now I would have my 4 separate checks here. All right, and that is going to take us to our final basic here, right, which is getting our tips. So kind of before we get to that, to kind of explain more navigation here on the screen, once the balance of a check has been paid, right, it goes moved to our closed check section. So right now at the top of my screen here where it says status, you can see I'm looking at all of my open checks. So these would be all my open active tables or guests or tabs or whatever it might be. I can always tap that, go to my closed checks, and view all my closed checks. Once the balance of a check has been paid, it gets this green tint. So visually, everybody knows at a quick glance, like, hey, there's nothing due on that check, right? It kind of takes the mystery out of that when you have a busy night. But so we're going to move that out of the way, right? Once that's done, then the nature of the way, staff members enter tips kind of varies across the industry, right? Sometimes you'll be able to do it right away because you just kind of have kind of a slower pace to things. Maybe it's a nightclub, right? Where you've got, 1,000 covers and 500 checks, and you're not going to have time to do that to the end of the night. Or maybe you do it every couple hours, right? Whatever you're going to enter your tips. And again, to be clear, we're going to look at a couple other things here as well in a little bit as it relates to Union Mobile, like I mentioned, and the POS on iPhones. So if we are utilizing those, we have different options there where the customer, essentially the guest, would be entering the tip, right? So there's no other action needed. If the venue is going to do the standard classic approach of, the printed out credit card slip, handwritten tip, they will need to manually enter that, right? So to do that, you're going to go to what I lovingly refer to as the hamburger menu, the little 3-line menu in the upper left-hand corner. First line down for staff will say enter tips. Here, they'll be able to identify the check or the transaction. And now there's 2 ways they can enter their tip. They can enter what the tip amount was, hit OK, and it will update the total. Or they can enter their total amount on the check, hit OK, and it will update the tip. Hitting the blue done button will get you out of this screen. And then a user can always go back to the closed checks at any time. When they have the tip entered, they would see right on the closed check what percentage that tip was. So take some of the mystery out of that. How much money am I making tonight, right?
Another question,
Yeah,
if I
great
can.
positive point. Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you've closed a check and forgot to ring up a drink, is there a way to reopen it and close it with the card on file?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go to my closed checks and let's say I accidentally hit that button, right? I can come here, I can reopen this, right? Now I can add my additional item, hit done. It'll move that back to the open check side because it now has a balance. And then there's another action we're going to talk about here in a little bit called the long press, where I can press and hold and then adjust this card on file, right? So mind you, I didn't need to ask for the card back at any point in time. I can just adjust it, and now we can close this check. But it's a great stopping point after our basics. Any other questions from anyone else on the call right now? I'd say I take my sip of water. All right. Wonderful. Well, now we're going to pivot a little bit and we're going to talk about what I call my favorite, really sexy, cool side of Union, right? Which is the Union mobile app side. Now, making us really, really unique in the space specifically is the Union mobile aspect. And mainly because from a myriad of reasons, but it's because it's built into our system, right? So one of the first questions I get a lot when I'm talking to somebody about Union Mobile is, what's the additional cost of that, right? Like what's that system, right? And I think that comes as a byproduct, especially from the COVID era, right? So I was getting out of day-to-day restaurant operations right as COVID hit. And I had so many colleagues who had to scramble and find solutions for contactless menus, right? And ordering solutions. And really, it was whatever fly-by-night QR code producing company would come in and, you basically would go to a website, right? And see a menu. With Union, it is our DNA. It's part of our system. It's part of our lifeblood. It's what actually our product was before we even created the point of sale. So the system here is, we at Union, we have an entire team dedicated to the customer success aspect of this, of utilizing this part of the technology and being really, really successful with it for a myriad of reasons. So one of those being, the marketing materials, right? So, customized QR codes with branded, images and logos that really feel like the venues that, that's specific to that venue. We do QR codes in a myriad of different ways, whether it be stickers, table tents, big signs, or NFC pucks, even, right? Acrylic pucks that are really kind of a really beautiful piece, sitting on the table that have NFC near field communication chips on them, where the customer can literally just tap their phone to it and not even have to open their camera to scan a QR code. But regardless of the entry point, when a customer comes into the business, they would sit down wherever, and you might have dedicated QR codes. You might have just one general QR code. And then they will be brought to the Union mobile app on their device. Now, if it's the first time they're using the Union mobile app, there's a couple quick, simple setup steps they need to do. I would suggest you on the call today all, do this and get, if you haven't yet, download the Union mobile app from the App Store or from Google Play Store. Get your account set up. But basically, you're going to enter their name, phone number, email address. They're going to instantaneously get a 6-digit, verification text sent to them. And then the last thing they would do is they would add a card on file. Now, we were never going to let a customer open a mobile check without a valid card on file. So, big part of that, right, is, making sure that the venue is protected, right? There's never a situation where a customer will be able to run up a big mobile tab and then not have a way to collect money from that customer were they to just walk out. So once I've done that, I'm going to open my tab. I'm going to think for a second. My tab is open.
Kyle, can I just chime in just real quickly? I just
Sure.
want to make sure it's clear. When you're in a venue and you're a customer, they do not have to download the app. When they scan that QR code or tap the NFC, it takes them to an abbreviated app clip, the mobile web experience, and or they can download the full mobile app from the App Store. The reason for all that, and I just want to highlight, is downloading an app can be a clunky experience. And so we've really built a streamlined experience that's specific to the venue that moves as quickly as possible. But we don't want to not have that the credit card authorization, but also the email, the phone number authorization not happen, because that's what really starts building the customer's profile for the venue and captures that phone number where we can say your drink is ready or your order is ready, all that great stuff. But I just do want to highlight for you all, it's great for you to download the app so you can use it across multiple venues and you can really see the robust experience. But if you're a consumer in the actual venue, you do not have to download the app. You can go through the venue's abbreviated app experience, which will be a faster input in. Back
Great.
to you,
Thank
Kyle.
you, Lane. Thank you, Lane. Yeah, great call out. Yeah, that was one of the things we did very early on with the mobile app, which I think was a large contributing factor to our success with it, is that we removed that barrier to entry of having to fully download it. So yes, a customer can utilize either the app clips or the web clip experience if they don't want to utilize it or download it directly to their device. So now my tab is open. I'm going to tap on order now. And then similarly, right? So I think this kind of came up earlier in the call about reordering orders that I've placed last week or last month. In the Union mobile app, we will kind of guide a customer to things that they order commonly at a venue, right? So you see here my cheeseburger with my modifiers from the last time I was in my environment, right, are kind of showing up at the top. So I can just easily add that again if I want to just get that again, right? Again, we have the full menu here as well. Now, the other thing to note too is that a venue can control what the customer sees on the Union mobile app versus what their staff sees on the point of sale. So when we get to the back end, I'll kind of point out and highlight how this is two separate menu types on the back end. It's utilizing the same item, the same price, and the same modifiers if you want to. However, if I'm a whiskey bar that, I set the Guinness Book of World Records by having 5,000 SKUs of whiskey, rare and all kinds of stuff on USA Today. I might not want the customer experience to be they have to scan through 5,000 whiskeys, right? So on the mobile side of things, I may just have my top 25 items, right? So I can control what this, a different experience for the customer from a view perspective versus what my staff sees from a menu perspective. But I'm going to go ahead and filter down here. I'm going to, go down to my food. I'm going to do my cheeseburger again. The same way you saw those modifiers on the point of sale, the customer would see those modifiers as well if you want them to. I can choose my options here. Again, I'm pretty clear, right, that this is a required choice, so I can choose my side option here. I can add that to my order. I'm going to let's do another Coors Light from last time. I'm a Coors Light guy, so I'll view that order. And then what will also happen if they are doing, full table service, delivery, ordering from the tables, this will auto-populate the table number as well. So this customer won't have to figure out where they're sitting. The other cool part about that from an identification perspective is, let's say that I come into the venue and I'm by myself waiting for friends, so I start my own mobile tab. Then my friends show up and they brought more people than we thought. We got to move to a different table. I don't have to close my tab here. I just leave it open and I move to a new table and I scan the QR code or the tap to the NFC puck at that new table, and it will update my table that I'm sitting at without having to close and reopen a tab. So I'm going to hit submit order. While we're on it, your order is being sent. We'll let you know, right? And when that goes through, I'll get my little confirmation message. Now, the confirmation message, this is totally customizable, right? So the language here is customizable. You see my example here is stay where you are. We're going to be bringing your food here, right? In case you have people who kind of tend to float around. Maybe you're going to utilize something like our pickup model, which I'll get more into in a second, where you're going to just say, hey, you're going to receive a text message when your order is ready for pickup, right? So again, a venue has a lot of customization here. I say, got it. I sit back and I enjoy my time with my friends. Now, what just happened in the real world, if we move back to the point of sale for a second, is now we see Kyle's mobile tab. We see the table he's sitting at. So when that check prints, it's going to have my name, the table, all that information on it. So if I am running drinks to somebody or delivering food to somebody, I can know who to ask for and where to deliver it. I think I saw some questions pop up before I get on my soapbox here about Union Mobile. Did we have any specific questions, Morgan?
Yes. So, do the NFC QR pucks have table numbers listed on them, or do you program them to tables after you receive them in back office, requiring you to label each table some other way?
Got it. I think I got the question. So short answer is it's really kind of up to the customer, right? So we have a generic kind of, tap to order here, right? That they can disperse and put out wherever. Or they can have totally customized that'll say on the sticker, table 11, right? And whatever font or kind of, again, design imaging that they'd like.
I saw Visa as a payment option. Can you now enter a card, or is it still Apple or Google Pay only?
Oh, that's a great question. So I have mine set up. So any venue has the ability to allow their customers to manually enter their card. We by default have it set to be Apple Pay and Google Pay, just really more to protect the customer. And the reason we did that is quite frankly, we saw a situation very early on where there were some scammers out there who, would find Union Mobile and they were basically using it to test stolen cards. So they would, put in an order for $250, see if it went through, never come and pick it up, and then the customer would get a chargeback because it was a stolen card. And so that's what we did the Apple Pay, Google Pay thing. But if a customer or venue, bar, restaurant really, really is adamant and says, hey, I have to be able to have my customers manually type in a card number, we can, enable that option for them. Are we all clear, Morgan?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so kind of going back for a second, I want to talk about Union Mobile and some of the, kind of conversations that I've had with customers and staff members around it, because I think there's a lot to this, right? So first of all, I think people get kind of locked into the full mobile ordering side of things, right? And I want to be clear that there's lots of different models and ways to utilize this that we've seen lots of different people have success with, right? So we kind of start with our default mode with Union Mobile, which is the open close model, right? So that is not going to allow the customer to actually submit an order themselves, but rather it's going to allow them to open their tab from their phone, right? Have their card on file, walk up to a bartender or show it to a server, and then that staff member can find that check on the point of sale, ring up all the items that they've ordered, and the customer would see those items on their phone in real time and be able to pay their tab when they want. Now, where this comes in that I think is really, really cool use case is like a concert venue, right? Like a large concert venue. And so one story that I love telling is we have a customer here in Texas. They are a 5,000 person outdoor concert venue, the largest outdoor concert venue in Texas. And they were a full QR code venue, right? So basically, Ticketmaster people at the front scanning tickets, and then immediately upon walking in the entry, there was QR code posters all over the place that says open your tab. And it was amazing to see how well this operated and how well it was executed, because now as a customer, my tab is open, right? I've got an open tab at one of any 25 concession counters I walk up to. So if we think about, the downside of waiting in line and which line is shorter, right? And then you have to pull the transaction, pull your card out at a busy concert venue. Now I walk up anywhere and I've got my tab open. I just give that person my name and I have one transaction. Again, where that benefits the business like that, or, example like that, instead of having somebody come up and maybe they buy 2 or 3 rounds throughout the course of the concert, and now you have 3 separate transactions. Now this is one transaction for the business, right? So one person for their entire experience throughout the night makes it even better, right? Limits the tabs. Sorry, everybody. That's my power, not yours. And so, going back here, let me get some power plugged in. And so, that's the open close model, which I think is really, really cool. The next kind of step up from there is what we call our pickup model. So pickup model, and what we're going to talk about here in a minute, and I'll show everybody how you actually do that, is the ability to send customers notifications saying, hey, your order is ready for pickup at any designated area that you call out, and you can instantly send the customer a text message from either the point of sale or from our KDS, right? So our kitchen display system has a function where if I can, mark an order as complete and there's a phone number associated with the mobile tab, which it has to have, then it can instantly send that text message to that person saying, hey, these are ready for pickup. And then that takes us to the full guest-led ordering model, where the customer then has the full ability to order whatever they want, modify, send those through. And what happens again in that environment is those tickets go directly to the same stations they print to normally, as if a server or bartender was bringing those things up. And then, it's just business as usual. Now, one of the things that I most commonly get pushed back on from staff around this is, for whatever reason, somewhere along the way, somebody told staff members that taking an order from somebody is where their value came from. I'm here to tell you it certainly does not. I've did this for many, many years, and the one thing that I have never ever heard or said in any bar that I've ran or been a customer of is, "Hey, how much should we tip Matt today?" And somebody goes, "Oh, well, service was really good, food and drinks were awesome. Let's tip Matt 20%." And then somebody else chimes up and goes, "Oh, hold on a second. Did you see how good Matt was at ring stuff up on the POS? He may have been the best POS ringer upper I've ever seen. We've got to tip Matt 30%." Has said nobody ever, right? So, and I think about the benefits, just one of the benefits of this is the ability to have your staff do what makes them and the business more money, because they don't have to go to a POS to ring something up. They don't have to go to a POS to run a card for somebody. Now they can be present in their sections, making recommendations, providing attentive service, joking around, getting to know, developing regulars, right? They have the time to do that now, because this aspect of their job that in reality has never, the action of going to a POS has never made them or the business more money, right? So then we're going to move on to another benefit here. So as the customer, when I'm ready to go, oh, sorry, different example. Sorry, before I get to that, where I like to show that this is one system, right? Let's just say I'm the customer and I get my cheeseburger or my beer delivered and I go, "Oh, I forgot to order my side of my tots. Can I order that from you, server?" Absolutely, you can. As a server, I can go find the check. I can find the item that they want. I can simply tap to add it like we did everything else. Here's a great example where you see the mobile is, I got my pre-authorization turned on for my mobile right now. So I've added the tater tots to the check. I hit done just like I would in any other order on the POS. Now, if I go back to my mobile, you see in real time what was added to my check from the POS is visible here on my phone. So then when I'm ready to go, I simply close my tab. We are always going to default to this 25% tip. It's part of the reason that we see higher tips on mobile transactions, right? On average, about 11 to 16% higher tips on mobile transactions. However, that's not really, in my experience, kind of working with venues to be really successful with Union Mobile, the real secret sauce behind this. The real secret sauce is the consumer mentality that I think we've all probably fallen victim to at this point. And so I call that the Amazon effect, right? So I don't know about you all. It's rhetorical. You don't have to pipe up, but I hope you laugh when you think about it. How much stuff would you all have at your homes right now that you or a family member or a friend ordered off Amazon, that if I told you had to get in your car, drive across town, park your car, go into the store, find the item, buy it, get back in your car, go back home? How much stuff would you not have if you had to do it that way? The answer is probably enough. I know it certainly is in my house. And so what we see is the consumer behavior of being able to just order another drink when I want one. That skyrockets the check averages, right? Which then in turn means if I was going to tip you 20% on a $20 tab, or I'm going to tip you 20% on a $40 tab, obviously that's going to make everybody more money, right? So really quick anecdote here on how that effect really plays out, right? We have a great partner of ours in South Florida. They're a phenomenally large sports bar. And so we were looking at their transactions, their checks from Super Bowl last year. So not a small venue by any means. When people say a venue is either too big or too small for Union Mobile, I have lots of directions to point them. This venue's got like 750 tables. There's a dog park in the place with its own bar, 13 separate bars, a massive, massive place, right? So Super Bowl Sunday last year, they did close to about 295,000 in sales. You did hear that correctly. So almost $300,000 in sales, single day of business. And we looked at their check averages. Their check average from a customer who was ordering directly from a server or bartender, standard classic approach, their check average is about $27. The check average of their customers utilizing the Union Mobile side of things was $49. So almost double when you think of the impact of that, right? Almost double for that simple consumer mentality of I can just order another one when I want one. Doesn't mean it tasted any better, didn't mean it got there any faster, but it's that behavior of I can just press the button and know it's on the way, right? So more money for everybody is always a really, really nice thing. So I'm going to simply come here, pay now. We'll sit tight. We're processing my payment. When my payment goes through, I'll see confirmation, and then I will get taken to my favorite last place, right? Our gamification, right? So we gamify this. So you can see today, I just so happen to be the 48th place ranked Coors Light drinker in all of Texas. I can share this directly to my socials from the Union mobile app. It's going to tie in the business. It's going to tie in the customer, right? It's a really kind of nice free advertising for the business and puts it at the customer's fingertips to do so after they check out. And if you ever want to know if are people competitive enough to really care about this, the short answer is yes. My favorite story of this is we had a customer call in our union support line, right? So not a bar or restaurant, but an actual customer of one of our union customers called in our support line, and they were very upset. They were upset because until that day, they had been ranked the #1 Casamigos drinker in all of Texas, and they had then in turn dropped to the second. So they were very upset by this. And so we explained to them how it worked. They understood. They got off the phone. And within about a half hour, they had actually emailed our support team a photo of them buying a round of Casamigos shots for the entire bar so they could be ranked #1 again. So it does work. I hit done here as the customer. Now my receipt has just gotten emailed to me. And if we flip back to the POS side for a second, we can see if we go to our closed check section. There's Kyle's closed tab, tips already added, done. Staff had to do really none of those basics that we talked about in the very, very beginning. The last thing I want to touch on here as it relates to Union Mobile is probably one of the most powerful parts of Union Mobile. So one of the other things that we do is we partner directly with liquor brands to offer rewards through the Union Mobile app, right? So this is a liquor brand working directly with Union to where if a venue carries this product, their customers on the mobile will see their ability to reclaim a reward, right? In this example, we see Cara Buena Tequila, $6 off. Now, this is really pretty magical. So to be clear, this is a one-time per user redemption, right? So once I've redeemed my Cara Buena Tequila $6 off coupon, I can't sit there and drink discounted Cara Buena the entire night, right? So it's not like somebody can abuse it. And then what's going to happen is we are not asking the business to discount anything at all, right? That's the coolest part of this. So it's not like their liquor rep came in and they said, hey, can you run a special on this? We're trying to push it, right? What it is, let's say in this example, the Cara Buena Tequila is priced at $8. So I order my first Cara Buena Tequila, and it could be a shot. It could be, built into a cocktail. There's lots of different ways we can offer rewards. And so now I get this, and I'm going to pay now $2 for my first Cara Buena Tequila shot. Awesome. Great day for me. What Union is doing is we are actually injecting the payment into the system, right? Which is why we call it a reward, because it's not a discount. So the business is going to get the full margin on the drink, while the customer is going to feel that impact of that discount. The really cool part here is it's win-win for everybody. We see on average about 78% higher check averages when there are rewards redeemed for the simple, again, behavior, consumer kind of reflection of, hey, I was going to have 2 drinks, but I got one for free pretty much, so I'm going to order a third one. So again, the customer feels like they got a free drink, they paid for 2. Business gets full margins on 3, which is always a great day, right? Higher check averages is always better. So I will pause here for another second, ask if we have any other questions, anything else we want to delve into as it relates to the Union Mobile side of things. I know we've got a lot to cover.
I have a question. You said on a mobile app they get an email receipt. Can they get a text receipt?
Today I believe you can get a text receipt. Maybe Jeff knows who has done it more.
I'm sorry, that was on what, Kyle? That was on
on a mobile tab. I don't think there's a setting for text receipt.
I think it's just an email receipt at this point.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
It is.
So yeah,
it's just
Jack.
Email. And then if you do download the app, it actually sits inside your app for previous purchases, which is pretty awesome. Had a lot of corporate venues at the corporate execs like to keep copies of reports in order to, or receipts to expense them at the end of the month. And it's all listed there. We keep them right on the app. If you download the app, that's available to you.
And that connects, right, Jeff? So if you didn't download the app, but you registered with your cell phone number, when you do download the app and have that same phone number, it will show in there.
It's all there. It's all
Yep.
there. It's amazing.
Kyle,
use it
can you show
personally.
that on your screen there?
Yeah.
So they can hit yep.
Absolutely. So your little 3-dot menu at the top, tab history. And I can go
Kyle
back.
needs to go to some more venues.
Yeah, they don't let me play too much. I don't get out of the office very often.
And then you could also get a paper receipt too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You could request a paper receipt, and the staff could go over to the point of sale and print a physical copy receipt if they like.
I have a question about these union rewards. So basically, that customer is getting $6 off a shot or drink or whatnot.
Mhm.
Who's paying that money back to the restaurant or to the bar?
Union is.
No.
So as I said earlier, Jacques, we are injecting that $6 payment. So if so again, the customer's going to pay the $2 on their side of it, and if you looked in the point of sale, you would see it says union offer credit. So we are actually making the business whole at the end of every single day.
So y'all give them that money, y'all ACH that money into their account?
Yeah, it's actually the way we do it is through a house account called Union Offer Credit. So we have a account that pays into that same way you would take payment into a house account on your individual venue. We have an account that pays into that house account every single night.
Okay, and that's all reflected on the reports, I imagine.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Great question. Morgan, do we have any other chat questions?
Not right now. Oh, wait, yeah, I'm sorry, there was one. I see online that most promotions for liquor are regional. How would I get promotions in my area for clients?
So, Ray, is that Ray question? Yes. Yeah, so, in most scenarios, right? In most scenarios, it's a national program, and so if the venue carries the product, they will automatically get put in the pool of being able to offer the reward through mobile. If for whatever reason it's a product that like the product that can't be sourced wherever the venue might be, we're not going to have that reward featured if they don't have it on their menu, right? So we're not going to put them in that situation. And then there may sometimes be, some limitations to regional, where a liquor brand wants to kind of focus their target efforts. But I hope that answered the question. And Lane, I know you and I talked about this. Did I misspeak on anything there?
No. I think that was fine. Just guys, make sure you're the biggest understanding there is the brands that are working with us are buying a data partnership with us. They have no control over the ultimate venue that their program runs in or the dollar amount that union is fully funding to drive that trial. That is all determined on the union, on our part of the system to really help make those customers who haven't tried their product, try their product, where that product is available at the venue location, right? The brands are buying a data program with us that ultimately says we're looking to increase market share in X market area, right? How can you help us and show us the data behind what's happening there? And that's what they're buying from us. Just want to make sure that is clear. A brand cannot come to us and say, can you feature me in Johnny's Bar and Grill in Austin, Texas with a $5 offer? That is an absolute no-go and something we cannot do.
Correct.
I'm sorry. I have another question. So
Yeah.
basically, I see these two offers right here. How long are these? How long are they compliant, or how long are they around for? How long do they stay available?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jock. So this is why we really encourage venues to jump on these things as soon as they're available. So the way to work is, let's say, Cara Buena Tequila, as our example we saw earlier, right? They buy a number of trials with us. So maybe it's 5,000 redemptions, right? To what Lane just said, they don't get to choose which venues. So this is, it's a national program, and that 5,000 pool is for every one of our union users. So we see the venues that really get behind this get the majority of the rewards. Once the 5,000 trials, for example, are done, then the reward will stop. The program will stop. And then another one will be coming, right? So there's always programs coming. There's always different brands that we're featuring, that we're working with simultaneously. So there's never really a point in time where I've ever seen that there's not some sort of reward available. Again, it all relates to then you carry the product, right? And if they really lean into it, it's kind of all pulling from that redemption pool.
Right. So how much notice do you guys give the business owner to say, hey, XYZ product's going to be $5 off next week or tomorrow? What kind of notice do you give them?
Yeah, I'll let Lane speak to that.
Well, first off, we will never tell the venue exactly the dollar off because that varies by the customer and the venue location based on what we're doing with the actual brand partner there. But the venues are notified every 2 weeks as to what brands are being featured. In the manager portal, on the top right part of the manager portal, when they log in, there is a rolling banner ad that ultimately changes as the brands change in their region. So if they can pay attention to that. And there's a website page dedicated that is accessible through our main website, getunion.com, through the homepage, like the header navigation bar that goes to feature brands that is constantly updated. For example, I can't even remember which program. A program ended last night. Ultimately, my team went around through and made sure all the messaging was updated so that it was removed. As Kyle said, those programs can go fast and programs can, it depends on how many venues pick up programs. So I don't necessarily always know when it will expire. I will let you know that if they work with their account manager and our customer support team, let's say they just picked up a case of Luxardo Espresso and the program ended, we will continue to run a recommendation on that offer for that brand to help them continue to move that product if that is the case.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you.
Cool. All right.
I'm going to do a selfish plug. This month, office hours is entirely on featured brands and how they work. If you'd like to attend, Morgan is sending out a message today, I believe, to every agent in our network about the office hours. Please attend that, and we'll go very deep into how the brands work, what value it actually brings to the different venues, what we're seeing across different venues, and how it actually supports you all as well. So I think that's Wednesday next week.
Cool. I might like to go to that too. All right. Let's keep moving, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and kind of round out our front end training here. And so I'm not going to go too deep on a lot of the next stuff we're going to talk about. But if there are any specific questions, please throw them in the chat and I will check before we wrap up the front end here. So I'm going to go back into our POS. And just to quickly touch on a couple additional things up here at the top, we see our different icons when we go into our check screen. Magnifying glass searches the entire menu. The little Rubik's Cube looking icon is meant to represent the open checks that kind of takes you back one screen. The little box with the arrow pointing into it is where you're going to see that's your lock screen. So walking away from the POS, right, to make sure that we don't put in people's numbers. And then if you ever see this little guy, I'll just touch it on it in real time. That's our little warning message, right? So something's wrong. So I unplugged so I could get some power, right? So it's telling me my card reader is disconnected. You can easily see when I plug my card reader back in, that's going to go away, right? So get rid of that, right? Then going back into our check here, on the left-hand side, this function is a little bit more functional for managing the check itself. So I can highlight an item I rang up previously, hit my little double arrow to quickly repeat that round, right? It can include modifiers, everything, sizing. Now, I also can tap on an item on the left that's in that gray kind of highlight. And that means I haven't sent this item through yet. So if that was a mistake, I can easily tap that, hit the little trash can to get rid of it. Now, any item that has been sent through, right, that's officially a sale as far as Union's concerned. We would never let a staff member or anybody be able to just make that disappear. So, but if I did need to void or comp this, I can go to the little megaphone up here, and that's where we find our adjustments. Now, again, operationally, what I really, really love about this workflow and this feature is that anybody can get to this. And so what I mean by that is on all the legacy systems and every POS system I ever used, really, the scenario would always be the same. It'd be a busy Friday night. A server would come running up to me and go, Kyle, I need, birthday discount applied on this check. I need this comped over here, and I need this voided off of this tab so I can close that one. And I go, okay, sure. And maybe I'm at the front door. I'm dropping, dishes off in the dish pit. So a couple minutes later, I walk up to a PS and I'm like, oh, crap. What check was the birthday discount on, and what did I need to void off of this check? They could close it, and now I'm the one slowing everybody down because I got to wait till they come back and tell me a second time while I'm standing in front of it, right? And so it was historically has been a bad workflow, right? With Union, even though me as a server, I might not have the ability to approve a comp or a void or a discount, I can still come in here, access the, attach the item, select what we're doing to it, right? Select the reason or type in a reason, hit done, it won't change the balance of my check. And now my manager, as soon as they're ready, they can come up and they can simply approve or decline what I had already set up, right? So from an efficiency and speed perspective, one of my favorite workflows in the union point of sale system. Um, and then lastly here, the paper airplane is kind of a manual send hold function. Really, two use cases I see for that is the situation where somebody, orders a bunch of complicated drinks and you want to send those off to the bar, get those started while you ring up all your food. Or the scenario of, they ordered their apps and their entrees at the same time. We don't want this all out at the same time, so I can select a few things, paper airplane, send that through, puts everything else on hold and gives me a little reminder here with my paper airplane icon. Hey, you still have stuff that needs to be sent. So when I'm ready, come back in here, select the entrees, paper airplane, and send those through. So that's going to take us, everyone, to one of the most important things from a navigation and a where does everything else live perspective, and that's the long press. Now, when I do a live training session, which I do twice weekly for front of house and once a week for back of house, for all of our venues, our partners, I really, really lean into how important this is, and I would suggest the same to you all, right? So my mantra, my phrase, it's actually tattooed on my back, and I'm starting a church next summer called the Church of the Long Press. Long press will be your best friend, is what I tell anybody operationally around a POS. So a long press, for those of you who are trying to picture what the hell I'm talking about, relates to that. Same way on any of your phones or devices, if you wanted to like rearrange the apps on your phone, you would do a press and hold on the app itself for a second instead of actually just a quick tap. And so if I do that here on a check, this is where I see all my options to transfer this check to a different employee. So maybe I've got a camping table and I want to get out of there because I've been cut, so I can transfer that to a closer. I can join and combine checks from the long press. So let's say we split this check earlier and seat 1 says, oh, me and seat 4 were together. I can long press on seat 1, join checks, combine that to seat 4. These two are now combined together back into one check. A long press on a check, I can manually add the customer to my customer database. So customer database is something we'll look at here in a minute in the back end, which is really, really cool access to your customer's information. And that has to happen automatically with the Union Mobile side of things or with that to-go check style. But maybe you want to, get, a table, right? And they're sit tables. You can manually add that customer to your database as well. Speaking to the text message options that we have with the pickup, as we mentioned, the Union Mobile, which we'll look at in a second, we can also flag a manager, which is a really cool feature. So flag a manager would allow a staff member to send a manager who's clocked in a text message directly to their phone that says, hey, drunk guy at table 25 needs security and you to come over here ASAP, right? And I don't have to go run through the building to find the manager. I can just go to my closest POS and send that manager a text message. Managers can review adjustments from the long press, right? So, again, button presses is time is money in this industry, right? So to save you a couple button presses, I don't have to go into the check. I can just simply long press and review the adjustments that way. A user can do a print, so print the itemized receipt quickly and easily through the long press. We can add a note. Adding a note will actually also print on the customer receipt. And this is where you would put like, thank you for, stopping by, come in and ask for Morgan next time, right? Setting a source is really kind of a special, unique boutique option that we offer, which allows a venue to delineate and designate checks to certain sources. So where I see this one come up is in a situation with like a nightclub, right? Where they might be paying a promoter for, a percentage of sales that they drove in. Well, they don't want to show that promoter the entire sales for the business. They want to show them the sales that he or she brought in so they can, dedicate that check to them and have a report in the back end that would show them that. And then simply it can reprint to all stations so that dreaded Murphy's Law scenario of it was the exact moment, they were changing out the printer papers when I sent back the 50 top party, and I just want to easily reprint it, the ticket to the whole ticket to all the stations. And then lastly, again, if you have a check that has a phone number associated with it, whether it be mobile or the to-go check style, when you long press, you can notify the customer what item is ready, hit notify, and that just sent my good friend Noel a text that his 2 burgers are ready to be picked up. So that is long press on the check itself. But I don't make such a big deal out of this long press thing because that's all it does. Next place, long press will be your best friend. Again, during the onboarding process, if a venue provides us with recipes for their items, we can attach those recipes to specific items, right? So I think about training, right? Being a training guy and training lots of restaurant folks for lots of years, there's always the struggle and the battle, right? Of like version control, right? So how do we have to reprint the menu training program every time we hire somebody? Or in most cases, is it that, spiral notebook that somebody brought in 10 years ago where we've just handwritten recipes for everybody to go and reference when we don't know how to make something, right? Well, with Union, we can build that directly into the point of sale, right? So here I'm a training bartender, or maybe I'm a bar back covering somebody's break, and I have no idea how to make this chief execurita. I can long press and we can have a recipe pop up. Now, you can print this recipe. So for the new kid, you can print it physically and have them go down the other end of the bar. Customers, want to get clarification on something, you can check and then order from there, or you can just dismiss if you needed a quick reminder about something. Now, the other reason I really love this, and what I kind of stress with venues, if they want to utilize this part of this, is don't just stop at your cocktail and your shot recipes, right? There's no rule that says that you can't also, have that attached to your food, to where I can come in here and I can long press on a food item. Maybe it's got suggested wine and cocktail pairings, or maybe it's got upsell options, right? Or maybe it's got allergen warnings. So lots of cool ways to utilize the training, the recipe aspect to really build in your menu training into the point of sale. And again, that is long pressing on the individual item itself. The next place that long press will be your best friend is with items that you have already added to a check and sent through, right? I know everyone in the service industry is perfect and no one's ever done this, but let's just pretend for a second that maybe I rang up the wrong thing on the wrong check, right? The old school way that I always had to do on whatever system I ever used was pretty standard across the industry, right? Was I would have to void the item off the wrong check. Then we would have to remember to add the item to the right check. So we charge the customer. Then we'd have to remember to put don't make on it so that we don't make it twice and, lose the money anyway. Then we'd have to hope that a cook or a bartender sees the don't make on that check and they don't make it anyway. Lots of places of human error where that could go south, right? So in this instance with Union, all I've got to do is highlight my item, long press it, and now I can transfer that to the right check, right? Go over here. Maybe it's several things, right? I can highlight multiples, and then I'm going to use my blue arrow, move those over, hit done, no harm, no foul, right? We don't have to do all the void and don't make stuff, right? So really, really nice and easy flow. Different scenario here with the long press on an item that you've already sent through. Maybe we're going to split this check and they say, hey, we're actually going to split the cheeseburger because we shared it, right? That's why we actually cut it in half. And so I can highlight it, long press, and I can split my item. In this case, we'll do two ways. Now I've got my half cheeseburger that I can put on two separate checks if I need to. And then lastly, maybe you had one item that didn't send to a printer for some reason. You can long press and you can reprint that individual item to that station. All right, I'm going to get my power plug back in here. All right, so that is, long press on the item after it's already been added to a check. Next place that long press will be your best friend is with items that you have not yet sent through. So I'm going to add this to my check here. While it's still showing in the gray color, I can long press. I can do the same transfer to check receipt that I did after the fact. I can do the same send hold that we do with like the paper airplane. I can do a don't make. This to me is one of the more brilliant things that we've done from like a day-to-day business operations that I've ever seen. And so, like I mentioned earlier, right, a don't make would be a scenario where either somebody, they forgot to ring something in, so they just went over to the bar real quick and asked for it, right? And they got it already, but they don't want to make it twice, but we need to charge the customer for it somehow, right? That's where the don't make, quote unquote, kind of phrasing and terminology comes in. When I do don't make the long press on Union, it allows me to add the item to the customer's check to charge them. However, it blocks from sending the station ticket. So thereby I completely eliminate the scenario that a cook or a bartender gets a ticket, they don't see the don't make, and we make it anyway and still waste the product. I completely eliminate that scenario. We do have coursing. on our system. So if a venue is super fancy and they want to do the coursing, right, as it relates to, sending the entire ticket all at once, and then a kitchen ticket would say course 1, course 2, course 3. If you have default coursing set up, and let's say I needed to change that coursing, right? So they want this appetizer, but they want it as an entree. I can change my course to course 3, and it would now print with that course. Then lastly, I can long press on an item before I send it, and I can add a note. And this add note would be the same as like sending a note message to the kitchen, right? Like 2 plates cut in half, sauce on side, something like that. So that is long press on the item before it gets sent through. And the last place that long press will be your best friend, I think addresses some of the earlier questions as well around payments, and that is with your closed checks. So we talked about this scenario already where I've accidentally closed this cash check, right? So let's go back and do that again to remind everybody. The ability to reopen checks as well is permission based. So again, we can restrict that to maybe just managers and owners, so staff can never mess with this. But we're going to reopen this check. Then I'm going to highlight my payment down here, long press it, and I can delete my payment in this case. Great. Hit done. It's going to move that check back to the open check section. Now I can continue to add to this, right? Take a different form of payment. Maybe they were going to pay cash, whatever the case is, no issues. Different scenario is maybe we ran the wrong card on the wrong check. I can go here, reopen this check, and again, I can long press and I can transfer this card to the correct tab, right? Now, mind you, again, I didn't have to ask for the card back. I don't physically have the card in my hand right now. In fact, my card is not even connected. So I get it done. This check is going to reopen back up as well, get moved back over here, and now I can come to this check, long press that credit card payment, adjust it to whatever the payment might be, adjust it, and then close that check. I can long press on a payment. I can reprint the slip. So we have a couple venues that they don't want anything printed, right? And so we can reprint it. We have many venues who have customers who like to imbibe in libations, and maybe the customer dumped their drink all over their signed credit card slip, right? Happened to me all the time. I can very easily reprint that. Or maybe the situation, very, very popular in our New York market is the only printing of one copy, right? So New York market noticed that there's this trend of people not taking their guest copy of their credit card slip. And so they requested that they just print one copy. And so in that case, then when the customer does request their copy, they can easily reprint that for them. Lastly, I can enter my tip from the long press as well. So if I did just close it out and they have the tip on there, I can enter my tip right now. And that, everyone, is the power of long press. I'll pause here for another second. Any other questions about long press or anything else come up in our chat? All right. Doesn't look like anything in our chat. I don't see anybody unmuting necessarily. All right, so we'll keep going, everybody. All right, cool. Last couple of things we're going to talk about are just some highlights of things that we find in the hamburger menu. Again, I'm not going to go too deeply into all of this stuff, just like what I think are some of the coolest features, but please chime in if anybody would like more detail on any of these. So enter tip screen, we talked about that already. That's where we go and manually enter our tips. Underneath that, we have the ability to close walk checks. Now, closing of walk checks. What this is, my experience as a bartender, worked several years in many college bars or college areas. And so this is the scenario where, we took a card on file, right, to start the customer's tab, and we're a busy place. And we've got that big sign up on the wall that says, hey, if you walk on your tab, we're going to automatically apply a 20% tip and close out and charge your card, right? That used to be like the bane of my existence, right? Like one of my least favorite closing duties as a bartender was at 3 a.m. to have to pull up a bar stool, sit at a POS, and go into every single one of these checks that were left open, charge the card, add the tip manually, right? With Union, all I need to do is go to my hamburger menu, close walk checks, select all, close selected checks. That's going to automatically charge the card on file. It's going to automatically apply a tip percentage that the venue is set in the back end and close these all out. Could be 3 tabs, could be 30 tabs, could be 300 tabs, is the same 2 button presses to close those all out, charge the cards, and add the tips. Amazing to watch in real time. But that's not all this does. This gets even better. So let's extend that scenario out a little bit further, right? So somebody walked their tab, you got the card on file, it's 3 a.m, you go to close it out. Well, unbeknownst to the bartender, that customer went to the bar across the street and they maxed out their card at the bar across the street. So when you go to close it in your bar at 3 a.m, it declines. Ruh-roh, right? This is usually where most businesses are kind of SOL, right? At that point, we do the old school stuff of you void it off and you print out the receipt and you put it on the wall of shame and hope that when somebody comes, they come in 2 months from now, somebody remembers and we charge them for the bill. That's never a foolproof way. And quite frankly, I don't know if it ever worked, right? With Union, if a card declines in the walked tab workflow, the system will automatically discount that tab to 0 to make the reporting accurate for the day of business. Again, we used the product, right? But we didn't get money for it. And then on the back end of the Union system, without anybody at the business whatsoever having to do anything, without any of you having to do anything, the Union system is going to attempt to recharge this card for the amount plus the tip once a day for 30 consecutive days until that money is recovered. It's pretty amazing to watch. I think on average, last time I saw, we have about a 92 to 98% recovery rate. The only time that I see, honestly, that I don't see it where the recovery method works is a situation where somebody actually has canceled their card, right? So in the event that somebody, really didn't have money and they didn't get paid for another 3 days, when they do get paid, we'll attempt to get the money and we'll charge the card. Or the scenario that I think is really popping up lately, which I think is really crappy. People have learned a lot of systems that they can go in, start a tab, and then pause their card from their, their apps on their phones for their bank cards, where they pause it, and go, oh, I don't know where it is right now. Pause it. Don't let anybody charge it. And then those venues go to close out and it declines because they've paused their card. They think they're smart, ha ha ha. And most other systems they are, right? Because that's when the system goes, sorry, declined. That's where when they turn that back on, at the end of the weekend, Union is going to capture that money. So one of my favorite and probably most talked about features, probably the only feature on the POS that has actually got me a hug from a bartender when I showed this to them, where that happened, every night for them, and they love it. Back to our hamburger menu, we've got some reports here on the POS. They're rather limited on the POS. This is just an example. I like showing this. And I encourage anybody doing a demo of Union to a live venue to kind of at least show them this. This is essentially a digital version of what that checkout report would look like. So when an employee at the end of their shift, they're going to run a checkout report, this is what's going to print from the system, right? So I always like to show this and compare to what they currently might be using, right? Or what they plan on using to know that, hey, this is going to work for all their needs, right? You've got your sales by category breakdown, payments by type, cash reconciliation, and tips broken out. And then depending on permission, you also may be able to see here, right, on this screen, your different, kind of overall venue sales information, right? So net sales by hour chart, kind of a hourly breakdown with a comparison. So when you fall over these thresholds, they'll see comparisons. They can make real-time decisions, as well as top 10 items being sold on this day of business and sales of individuals who are clocked in or clocked out. Adjustments is a place where a manager can go to do all the adjustments. Countdown is a pretty cool function. This is where I can come and I can search for an item. And maybe we realize, beer delivery comes tomorrow. We've only got 3 Coors Light left. I can tap on my Coors Light, add my quantity, hit done again. Now you'll notice if we go back to a check, if I go to my Coors Lights, it'll have that quantity on it. As this gets ordered across the entire Union platform, any point of sale, any mobile handheld, any mobile app check will all seize the same thing, right? So as it gets ordered, it counts down. To further illustrate my point about it being one system, I always like showing here. If I go back to my tab on the Union mobile app, go back to my tab here, you can see in real time, it's going to update and here as well, right? So again, going back to my earlier remarks about where I think people's heads were at coming out of COVID from a QR code perspective, this is not that. This is absolutely not that, right? So with those, I remember having to manage at my business at the time, like 3 separate systems, right? Like if I 86 something on the POS, then I also had to go to these 3 other websites to 86 it on the mobile app, so nobody saw, that it was still available there. So this talks to each other. I can order this last one, right? Submit that order. When that order goes through, we are now going to be out of Coors Lights. You see here, if I go to it's going to show sold out on the mobile app. And at the same time, it's going to show sold out here on my POS. It also is going to automatically create an 86 item list on the front of the screen. So everybody will know what we're out of as soon as it happens. We don't have to have that fun fire drill of the manager or assistant manager, somebody run around and tell every single person who works there what we're out of today, right? Then very, very simply to remove that, say beer guy shows up, we're good to go on Coors Light now. I go back to my hamburger menu, back to countdown, hit the X to the left of the name to remove that, hit done. And now if we go back in, that's available for everybody to order again, and it's removed that 86 item list from the 86 item list. Last couple things here, and then I'll pause and ask for. Oh yeah, go for it.
Question for you. All right, so here's my question, just in terms of like, all right, the inventory counts and like the deals on the mobile app, right? Like, is there a limit? Like, right, like I don't know, you guys offer like $3 or $6 off specific drink items, right? When does that run out?
So yeah, good question, Dave. We discussed that earlier, right? So it runs out when the program is done, right? So as an example, a brand might purchase 5,000 trials with us, right? Every time somebody redeems one, that counts as a trial, and it is one redemption per person, right? So once I've redeemed my, Casamigos, reward or my Michelob Ultra reward, right? That's it for me. I don't get that every single time I come in. I get one redemption per person. Once those redemptions are complete across the nation, that's when the program stops.
Okay, and you can
And then
only
David, to further back it up, Elaine mentioned it as a great reminder. So once the reward is done, right? The reward is done. However, we still may work with venues to have a union recommends. So it's still, if they brought in a product specifically because it was being a reward and they want to kind of still have some support to push it through and get through the product and get, move on from it, we would still have a union recommends banner that highlights that product or that brand as well. And so that kind of also helps once the program is done, kind of guide people to that.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Did that answer your question, David?
Yeah.
Great. All right. So just to finish up here real quickly, again, countdown we just talked about, managing the inventory 86ing items, transferring of checks. So I showed you earlier, you can transfer a check with the long press. That's great. But sometimes you have this scenario where you've got many checks you need to transfer, and that would be a pain in the butt to long press each one. So instead I come here, select all, and do a bulk transfer of checks that way. And then lastly, manage shift notes gives the user the ability to add any notes they want to today's briefing section. So maybe it's something like happy birthday Lane, or today's special is this, or need everybody's vacation request by Friday, right? All that stuff can live here so everybody sees it when they're walking up to the POS.
Wait, best practice. That's also a great place to announce what brands you are carrying that are being featured if you want to lean in on that feature with your venue, right? Luxardo Espresso is being featured in the Union app. Encourage everyone to open the app so that they can get the recommendation and the reward.
Yeah, great call out, Lane. Cool. Customers. So here, again, You can access your customer database, right? See phone numbers, email addresses. You can also add a new customer, right? So maybe this is somebody who you've talked to on the phone and you want to add them in here, right? Or a friend that you know is coming in and you want to kind of start their profile for them. You can manually add folks to your customer database as well. Manage employees is an area where again, a lot of these are permission based. So manage employees gives me the ability to see who's clocked in, what their PIN code is, run their checkout for them, or clock them out. And here is where I can manage the house accounts that we mentioned, or manage my third party orders. So we do integrate with a company called Kitchen Hub. That is for our third party integration. They're a third party aggregator, right? So what that is customer would sign their agreement with Kitchen Hub with Union. Union charges them monthly, and then they have the ability to have DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats, all three of them, any combination of the three, or even just one if they only have one of the accounts. And the customer or the user would still order from those services, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, but then it goes through Kitchen Hub and aggregates to have it go directly through the Union system. So then what would happen is, just like the Union mobile side of things, customer orders from DoorDash or Grubhub or whatever, and it's going to send the tickets just like everything else. It's going to show closed here, right? Because it's taking the payment through the third party app, but it's really a nice way to put everything under one roof, essentially, as it relates to all the different pieces of technology that a venue might have or be using. And then lastly, checkout, which is the action I'm going to go through if I'm a server or bartender to end my shift. And then lastly, the end of day, which is the actual kind of batch process, right? So to be clear for everyone on this call, there is always and actually no way to stop what we call our automatic end of day. So every venue will have an auto end of day that they're set for. It will be usually some arbitrary time the business chooses where no one would ever still be there, usually like 4 or 5 in the morning. And that's going to do a full sweep of the system to ensure that everything that's closed on the POS is going to get sent to the processor for batching for the next day. However, I do, during my normal trainings for venues, walk everybody through that whole process, because I do remind people that if they have the ability to have a human, a manager, or somebody run the end of day manually when they're closing up every night, it's just an ideal practice from a reconciliation and reporting perspective. It's just much cleaner to do it that way. So everyone, I am going to pause here. We've got about 30 minutes left, and we're going to dip our toe into the back end, but that pretty much concludes our front end training. So the POS, the mobile side of things. Are there any other questions about anything else front end related that we talked about or didn't talk about?
Hi,
Yeah.
I have a couple questions that I was holding off on until the end.
Yeah, sure. Go for it, Clarence.
These are actually coming directly from a client that I'm currently pitching Union to.
Love that.
One of the things that he has Toast right now. One of the things that he asked is, when he has like a really popular band or something like that, and he knows the place is going to be packed, he raises all of his prices for those kind of like peak times.
Yep.
With Toast, he has to go in and like individually change prices, and it's like a lot of steps. He asked if there's a way that he can just change everything by like 30% across the board, for example.
Yeah. So it's a great question, and there's a couple different ways in which we can do that. I'll illustrate one when we flip over to the back end, Clarence. But I can think of specifically, I have a customer who today they have live music every Friday and Saturday night, right? And so we have a function in Union called pricing event. So what they do is they have this pricing event that they can turn off and turn on, right? And they can fully control it. But we've created and set all the rules for them that on Fridays and Saturdays from 10 p.m. to midnight, or 10 p.m. when they close, the price of everything goes up $1, right? And
so you can even not even have to do it at the exact time, but have it preset. Like if you always have events on Friday night. Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. Or if they wanted to call into our support team, my support team has the ability to, with a couple clicks of a button, raise the every single item on the menu by a certain percentage, and can also decrease that. Now that one can get a little messy if you're adding stuff in between changing it. So that's kind of like a last resort, but the pricing event is the way that I would go for sure.
And that can be a one-time or recurring on the pricing event?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. The second question was just, do you guys support cash discount or dual pricing?
Yeah, great question. So, we do. We do. So we have a couple different options as it relates to this. We have what's called surcharging, as you all should, are probably aware. Surcharging is controlled by the card brands and is capped at 3%. So we do, and I'm sorry, and is also only applicable to true credit cards. So our system will determine what the 6 digits bin range of what, debit card versus credit card, and allow a 3% surcharge to be automatically applied to a true credit card. As we all know, that's going to leave a lot of holes in the net in terms of trying to claw back your processing fees. So we primarily support, and I think it's probably the vast majority of our customers who come on in the last of say 2 years are doing the cash discounting dual pricing model. So the way that works with Union is we kind of do it to the letter of the law from a PCI compliance perspective. And so let's say a venue wants to do a 4% cash discount, right? The item prices on the menu, like so on the point of sale, on the mobile app, on the menu, needs to be the credit price, right? So for 40, let's say 4% discount, we're going to raise the price of that $10 drink to $10.40. So that's how it's going to show on the screens, everything. Then we would set a 4% cash discount to then if the cash is the chosen tender type, it would automatically discount everything on that check by the 4%. So then it would then take that, $10.40 drink back down to $10, and that's what the cash paying customer would say.
Awesome. So I have a question on that. When they do that, does that mean that they should update their paper menus to match?
It is a best practice. Now, we have customers all over the country. I know some municipalities have been really cracked down on this. Others don't really care. But I recommend that as much transparency to the customer as possible to avoid any issues.
And what about with the integrations with the delivery apps? Does that change their prices on those?
Another great question. Yes, so we actually have the ability to have kind of separate pricing for the structure for that, right? So you can have the same singular item in your back end, right? So let's say it's a cheeseburger, and that cheeseburger on the POS and on the mobile app for my in-house customers, maybe it's $11, but then I can also have a third party delivery option price. So maybe I take it to $15 on those apps. So it's the same item. You'd have those two different price fields in the item that you could set on the back end, and then that's how they would talk to each other.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kyle, so Ray, I think there's a follow-up question to the mobile ordering and Visa and MasterCard. Ray, did you need some clarification on that?
No, that was clear for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have a question about dual pricing. So I understand dual pricing. You have to have a cash price and credit price on your menu. But how does the receipt look for dual pricing with Union? So for example, if it's a $10 beer, okay, is it going to say cash price $10, credit price $10.40? And then once let's say it's credit, is there going to be another line item that says like non-cash adjustment or surcharge or whatnot if it's a credit transaction for that additional 40 cents? Or does it just roll it up as $10.40 as
Yeah.
a fee?
Good clarifying question, Chuck. So what'll happen is it'll show, like, let's say I just print the itemized receipt, right? And I'm giving the customer, I don't know how they're going to pay. It's going to have the $10 drink listed at $10.40, right? And it's going to give you the whole subtotal and everything for that. Then it will say, if paying with cash, a whatever percentage discount will be applied. It'll then show at the bottom of that underneath the subtotal, cash total, right? If you pay cash, this is what you're going to pay, and then credit debit total, and it'll show what that is.
Cash discount. All right.
Question from my side over here, guys. Like, right, rocked cash discount for a while. Like, right, to the point of sales that I was pushing, or that I'm still pushing. Like, right, just came out with compliant surcharging. Right, what are the plans for Union with compliant surcharging in the future?
Can you tell me more, David, about what they did to make it compliant? I'm curious what compliant surcharging means.
Compliant surcharging, right? Visa, MasterCard, right? Limited everything at 3%, right? So it would be like a set price. You do an uplift of 3%. The restaurant technology needs to be able to identify what a credit card is versus a debit card. Debit cards are basically charged 1% and charged to the owner, right? The 3% is charged to the customer if it is a credit card. So just wanted to see if you guys have that in the mix, because I know, like, for certain people that don't want to raise their menu prices if they're listed, like, right, why it's Why you guys might not be as privy to it is because, like, for bar drinks, you don't typically always have those listed. And since you guys are a bar heavy point of sale, it might not be of necessity, but like it's something that people are also looking for right now. So just wanted to see if you guys had that on the roadmap at all and what your thoughts were.
Yeah. So David, to be very clear, currently today, we've actually had surcharging options since 2020, I believe. So we have an option. So we give the customer both options, right? They can do the cash discount pricing, and then they can do surcharging. We cap it so that, to your point, right? They can't extend past 3%. And then our system currently today is able to use the 6-digit PIN range of the card to determine debit versus credit and apply the max 3% to a true credit card if that is the payment method.
Okay.
I'm not aware of the term surcharging being compliant for anything related to debit, but we can do some research on that, and I can take that back to the product team.
Well, I mean, are you guys surcharging the debit cards too, or no?
No, nope.
No.
The system will determine debit versus credit, and if it knows it's a debit card, it will not apply the surcharge. If it
Awesome. So
recognizes,
you guys have both options for whichever way they want to go, right?
correct.
So
Yep.
it is compliant, just to jump in, based on what I understand, it's not going to charge the consumer on debit cards. It'll charge the owner the 1% or whatever.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
I think it was clear there, but I want to make sure it's clear. We do not have a dual pricing visual in our system. So a customer does not go into the mobile app or see a digital menu from Union that says your beer is $10 if you pay credit, it is $8 if you pay cash. We offer the ability to surcharge on credit cards only and or offer cash discounting, which does require the merchant to increase all price points to cover their credit card fees, and then offer a cash discount, which shows on the receipt to the customer when they pay cash.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, honestly, it's surcharge is basically for people who don't want to raise their menu prices who are
Correct.
totally against it,
Yeah.
right? So, like, that's it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guest pushback on that, just so you know, like, why
Yeah.
am I paying
Oh,
this, right? So we highly recommend the cash discounting approach if you're going to want to implement a dual pricing strategy with your
Well,
customers.
plus it's more advantageous for everybody. And it's a true $0 fee. So,
Correct.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly right.
We just get
Awesome.
the question all the time of like, do we show both a cash price and a credit card price? No, we don't. That's not how we implement it because it's very confusing for the customer in that sense. And most people aren't looking at their pricing when they order a drink, if you think about that. So
As a question for that, so it does or doesn't show that if they pay cash, they get a discount because you have to have the credit card price and you have to have the cash price.
So essentially the venue, I guess, would have to advertise that they offer discounts when paying cash. Is that
yes.
the best
Yeah,
practice
Yes,
there?
and it's
so when-
visible on the closeout tab. So when they go to pay, they will see if the venue is offering a cash discount, they will see if you pay with cash, you are going to save X dollars.
Correct. So yeah, so if that setting is turned
I
on,
have
the
a
venue is set
question,
up to do that.
actually.
That's how it will print
In
on
you
a
guys'
receipt.
experience, does that encourage more cash? Because in my mind, a lot of the value for Union is speeding things up, and obviously cash slows things down.
I don't know, Clarence, that
opens
we
you
have
up
any
to
data
theft
on
and all
that.
kinds of stuff.
I don't know that we have any necessarily data on that, but I think it's just more consumer behavior. Is just people don't carry cash anymore, right? So I don't know that we've seen an incredible increase in the amount of cash that people are taking because a venue's advertising cash discounting. Now you're correct, and that's kind of the way I explain it. Is that the cash discount is really incentivizing the use of cash and kind of trying to flip the narrative a little bit, right? So you're not penalizing the customer paying with credit. You're rewarding the customer paying cash, essentially.
Well, that's where I was.
Yeah, no. So
going with
I'm
that,
saying
right?
I
Because
understand
if you're
where you're coming from and why you
incentivizing
asked the
cash,
question,
then you're
because that's a
encouraging
great
it,
way to
right?
sell it. But at the end of the day, I don't think that there is a correlation between cash payments increasing because a venue is doing cash discounting.
Okay, so you haven't seen complaints like people are saying, "Hey, now that I've done this, I've got all this cash to deal with."
No. Well, Kind of. So what I hear is, hey, now that I've done this, I've got all this extra money in my pocket to deal with. Do you want to come over and
Okay,
hang
fair
out? Do
enough.
you want to like take you out for drinks? Like that, get that more than complaints about having too much cash.
Okay, fair enough.
Cool. All right. I kind of lost track of our chat. Are we good on our chat, Morgan?
Believe so. I'm guessing you just was. Justin, did your question get answered about the beer that didn't exist? Well, I'm going to read it to you. Say the beer, like going back to POS and the beer, and sorry, back to the POS. Say a beer didn't exist, dropped or broken earlier in the shift, and the customer paid and closed out his tab. How does that get refunded to the customer? And then they added a comment. I'm guessing you would just void the item when the service ticket prints and the item doesn't exist.
Yeah, so Justin, if you want to chime in and give me a little bit more clarity on the context, I think I'm getting where you're going with this. But basically, a couple different ways you'd handle that. So if, for some reason we charge the customer, so I kind of use this as a different, I'll use a different example and you give me a thumbs up or a yes or no if this answers the question. So different scenario, customer came in, they had a to-go order, right? And they get all the way home and they realize that they didn't get their order of wings, right? So they call up the restaurant and they say, hey, I didn't get my wings. And they go, oh, okay. And we already closed the check, right? And so, but it's still on the POS until the end of day runs, right? That's why we do our end of day. That's what's actually sending the batch. So theoretically, if this happened for, at lunchtime and the customer calls at 5 p.m., that check is still going to be on the POS. So we can then reopen the check, comp off or void off the wings and adjust the credit card payment before we actually run the batch and close it out. That's like a day of scenario, right? Different scenario or similar scenario, but different is that, the customer calls and said, hey, I was in there yesterday and I didn't get my whatever item. The venue does have the ability to refund directly from the union backend for up to 90 days after a transaction has taken place.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. All right, everyone. Well, we've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to use those 15 minutes to quickly kind of show us our union manager portal, touch on some highlights, and then again answer any other additional questions we might have. So my screen pulled up here. All right. So everyone, this is the Union Manager portal. So a couple things that I always love to highlight and point out here, especially as someone who was, like I said, an old legacy user, right? So when I say legacy, I'm talking about the monolithic, Micros and, Alohas of the world. To do anything on my POS there, I had to be logged into that one server desktop, big CPU in the back office of the bar or the restaurant, right? And so that's where you had to be to do anything. Our backend is completely web-based. So any device that can get to a web browsing page can get to the manager portal. So I tell people all the time when they ask, do you have a manager app, right, that I can download? The short answer is no, because you can open up the web browser on your phone and get to your manager portal, right? So it's the same place. And so logging in here is usually it's tied to the user's name and email or the email associated with them as an employee. And then they can also utilize Google sign-ins, right? So I'm going to sign in here and show you another one of my favorite examples of cool stuff in the back end, which is enterprise reporting. So if a user has multiple concepts, right, or multiple locations of a single concept, and they have all obviously separate backends, if I'm in this as the same user in all of those different backends, I would have then what I call enterprise view and access. So you see, I obviously live in a lot of manager portals, so I can very easily here see all of my businesses, sales total. I can see labor versus sales comparisons, right, for all my locations. I can see enterprise sales by category comparisons by location, and then items, top 10 items sold across all of my locations, right? So really kind of cute, cool, high level, right at your fingertip access for those customers that do have multiple businesses or concepts with us. And then, of course, I can always, filter this. So if I only want to see a select number of my different businesses, and then I can always use my drop down here to filter directly to the business that I want to look at today. And now we land at the individual homepage. So if I didn't have enterprise view, if I only had one business with Union, this is the first page that I would land on when I log in. So again, a couple quick call outs here. The today's briefing, this is a real-time widget, as you can see, right? So this is where if I wanted to, a quick glance where we at right now, right? Or where we finished yesterday, this is where I would come. Top 10 items sold yesterday, sales per labor hour. As Lane mentioned earlier, here in the message from Union section is where you'll see different, kind of a scrolling banner of different rewards that we might be offering, as well as other cool stuff like case studies or, how certain, businesses that we really have excelled with parts of the Union Mobile product are using it and utilizing it. So really cool information there. Our referral link, and then our feature request. Probably one of the biggest things for me, like as a former operator, is this feature request. Whenever I would ever call any other POS that I ever used, right? Like inevitably with any system, any piece of technology, right? Someone's going to come up with a great idea one day and go, it'd be really, really cool if the system could do that. Or it'd be awesome if I could get this report, right? Or it'd be really cool if I could do that. That always happens. Whenever I had those ideas or had those questions, I would call to my support number and they'd go, yeah, no, that's not a thing, but we can put in a feature request for you. And I'd kind of like snicker, and because that ticket would then go off into the ether and I would never ever hear about it ever again. When you go here to submit a feature request, it actually circumvents my entire support team. It goes right to Becky, my head of product. She reviews these things. She'll reply back with like hey, it's on the roadmap already, or hey, that's a great idea. I'd love to meet with you and learn more about it, right? And so we take these very, very seriously. And I can honestly tell you, I've seen us do improvements to our system here at Union in the 6 years I've been here more than any other system that I used in my 25 plus years in the service industry, right? In terms of like advancing and getting better and doing something that somebody requested because it made sense. It was a great idea. So I always encourage operators to take care of and to utilize this submitted feature request, because that's how our product gets better for our shared customers. Then real quickly, we got a couple minutes left. My friend, the hamburger menu, 3-line menu in the upper left, again, is how user navigates. The home icon takes you to the screen we're looking at now. The flash icon is the flash page is a kind of a full broken out version of, those widgets you see on the front screen, right? This one's exportable if you needed to. You've got your customers section, your customers database. So we mentioned this a couple times. This is, basically anybody who does a Union Mobile order or a to-go order, and then anybody that you've manually added to the database via the point of sale. Again, this is really, really cool. I can vouch for the effectiveness of this. I can tell you all how one bar in San Francisco is doing on Friday night for their tribute band versus what the specials are happening at another bar in Hoboken, New Jersey. And that's all because I exist in those businesses' databases, and I must get 3 to 5 texts or emails a week, right? Going, hey, come in here for VIP shots at midnight, or come in here for this band. And so I get it, and I can tell you probably with more accuracy what's happening at those Union customer bars around the country than I can tell you what's happening at the bar down the street from my house. So really, really cool. Then the kind of the 4 major sections that we focus on during a live, operator training session is the settings. So settings is where a lot of the way the system will operate functions, like that automatic end of day batch time, right? Setting, their reporting settings, their labor, their taxes. So again, this is all stuff that we go through, and my great onboarding team takes the business through during the onboarding process to make sure that all this stuff is accurate and set properly. Because you guys asked earlier, we'll show you here. This is where the cash discounting and credit card surcharging settings live, right? You can see our options there. And then as well as the incremental auth options and pre-authorization options. Again, all kind of worked through and confirmed during that onboarding process. Last couple of things here. We, of course, have our labor section. This is where the employees live, right? So we're going to add new employees, give employees permissions, take away permissions, and all those different permission sets live here, right? So example here, you see, my manager profile set. They can do all the adjustments, comps, voids, and everything, but my bartenders and my servers cannot, right? So really a lot of customization can be done with permission sets, both for front of house and back of house. So I also have a lot of customers who, are so small or small enough they don't have an accounting department, so to speak, but they might have a third-party accountant they use to run their books for them. They can give that accountant access and just give them the ability to log in and run reports and not get to their settings or see their menus or anything, right? So really love the customization there. And then again, that kind of all culminates here with adding the employees into the system. Next is the report section. I am going to not go too deep into this today. I'll just kind of show you at a quick glance. Our entire reporting package is changing in about a month. And so I'm not going to, waste anybody's time, but we do have some pretty robust reporting. What I can tell you, as you can see here, right? Financial statements, all the different financial reports, different sales reports, different employee reports, right? What's coming and what's changing about this is we are moving to a totally new platform that will allow for full customization. So you can take any data point that your union system captures and put it into whatever kind of configuration report that you want. You can also schedule those reports to be emailed. So that's another big one, and any of them, right? So you can have whatever report one person in your organization might want to have, scheduled, sent to them, can be done and created. And they also is going to include an AI assistant. So I can very, very simply type in the AI prompt, hey, I'd like to know my sales on Guinness from open to dinner time every St. Patrick's Day for the last 5 years. And the AI assistant can actually pull that data and put it into a report for you. So it's going to be very, very cool. But as you can see, we have pretty extensive reporting today, and we'll continue to improve that. Lastly is our inventory section, and this is basically where the menus live, or basically all your items, right? So not inventory in the sense of taking inventory or reporting inventory, but rather the inventory that you carry. So this is basically where all of your items live. Editing of an existing item is as simple as clicking the pencil, and you can edit the items in here. See here since someone asked the question earlier, I think it was Clarence. Here's where solo price would be your price for your point of sale, for your POS and for mobile. Third party would be if you were offering this on one of those third party platforms like DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats through Kitchen Hub. Additionally, in menus, under the menu setup, you have your menu screens. So another really cool feature. Let's say that maybe you have the venue serves brunch, right? You see here, we can go into our screens and we can set timers for our menu screens. So we can have a brunch menu that's only available Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And during those time frames, that menu screens and areas will just pop up. And when it's time for them to go away, they'll just go away. And it's kind of a set it and forget it type of a thing. Sales categories is how we map for both reporting and tax application. Modifier groups is where you would create those different things that we saw in the POS that live behind the items, right? So again, totally customizable. Whatever it might be, upcharges on certain things that can be added. Recipes is where we create those recipes when I long press on the item itself, right? So again, like I said here, this is an open text field. There's no reason you can't create a new one for the steak with, add the extra baked potato and sides, and then, make sure you ask for, suggest this wine pairing, right? So really a cool use for training there. And then going back to, I think, Clarence's other question about raising the prices. So this is how we do our pricing events. So here, mine is a happy hour example. So we set a description, but we can set time parameters, right? So is this an all day thing? Is this, certain time, certain days of the week, right? Is there an expiration date? So do I want to have it just be a one-time thing? And then you have all of your items in your inventory up here at the top in this drop down, and I can simply select the item. It's going to add it to my list here, and then I select the rule. So I can set my price to a certain specific price. I can increase by a dollar amount, decrease by a dollar amount, or decrease by a percentage. And that's how we handle the pricing events. So I know I brought it down to the last 2 minutes.
Is there a way to select all on that or no?
Yeah, you could come in here and you can do this to select the category, but you can't. You have to set the individual rules for the items.
Okay.
But again, Clarence, if this is something that the venue knows they want to do during the onboarding process, they would communicate this to our team, and my menu building team would have this built for them. They wouldn't have to do this themselves.
Okay, cool. Got it. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, everyone. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time today. I will leave you all with the same thing I leave any training session with is your follow-up resources as well. I know Lane and Morgan and Clint really do a great job providing you all with a bunch of, bunch of information and resources. When you get logged into a Union Manager portal, you guys, user, anybody, will always have this link here on the left that says learning. This, when you click that link, will take the user to this page, where I house right now about 65 1 to 3 minute videos that basically chunk out everything that we covered during a live training session. So instead of having to go back through a 2-hour recording of a meeting, I can come in here and watch a 2-minute video on how to out a countdown or an 86 an item, right? Or a 2-minute video on the power of that long press. As well as the front of house, we also have manager portal back of house for, reporting settings, right? Managing that stuff as well. So this is a resource that everybody who has access to the manager portal has access to. This page, however, is not password protected. So I tell venues all the time too, if this is something they would like to share with staff, they do have the ability to just copy and paste their link, send it to their staff, and their staff can come in here and watch these videos as well. All right. Morgan, anyone else from my team? Am I miss anything? Any other questions come up?
No, I think that was it.
Cool.
Would
We've
it
hit
be
our 2
possible
hours,
to get
everybody.
a copy of this recorded meeting?
Yeah, absolutely, Clarence. We are recording this and we can share it. Morgan, if you wouldn't mind making a note for me and I can share it with you. And so
Of
you can.
course, we'll do.
Thank you all for joining. We really appreciate you guys' time and your sort of diligence to learn more about the system and support us. As most of you have probably already heard, mission, every high volume restaurant needs to know there's a better tool out there, and it's called Union. And together we can make that happen. So thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Kyle.
you.
Good work. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.